We are live, and this time it totally wasn't my fault. It was Southern hospitality style. But we are here. Starting from the top right, we have Mr. Brandon. Tell him who the hell you are, and that you're Frosty
Brandon.
And things.
I'm Brandon Frosty, runner of So Frosty Gaming.
Endy, you're a true loyal son of Russ.
True loyal, goddamn Tau bastard.
I don't know if I'm next, but y'all's backgrounds is way better than mine, and your intros will probably be better as well. But I'm Austin Wingfield, if you don't know me. Look me up. I've been friends with Brad a long time. That's actually how I'm famous, right, Brad?
Dude, I do love the fact that, as usual, I went, you know what? We decided we're going to talk of the Reveals Chaos Nights, and I'm like, oh, shit, I'm calling Austin. Do you want to go live with me? When? I don't know, like now?
Now? Sure. Yeah. You guys know I do mismatch play. I'm on Team Battle Brothers. I love talking about anything. So if you ever invite me, I will usually say yes, Brad.
Yay.
And also, you're now captain of Death or Glory, right?
Yeah, I am. We've got Team Battle Brothers part of Death or Glory. So a lot of us here in the South, you know, we're expanding. So shout out to the OG Death or Glory team. It turns out we're all best friends, and we just didn't know it until we hung out at events.
Exactly. Like, wait a second, are we all on the same team now?
Austin, aren't you in Virginia?
Yeah, I am in Virginia. Yep.
I'm totally more south than you.
That's
Well,
okay.
And then Endy's even more south because he lives
more
in Texas.
south, yeah.
I mean, he used to not be. He used to be the most north of us. Then he went down to his roots.
That's right.
Let's talk Chaos Nights, guys.
Yeah, man.
Dude, let's talk about this army rule. Apparently, it's so good it made me lose speech. Harbinger of dread. From the first battle round onwards, the despair abilities act for your army. While an enemy unit is within 12 inches of this model, each time the enemy takes a battle shock or leadership test, subtract 1 from that test. That's pretty sick because some of these other guys we're going to see just make you take battle shock tests. Battle shock tests are legit, especially when you have knights, which are objective controlled. Go fuck yourself. It's ours. So, but dude, the bigger thing from battle round 3 on, Doom and Darkness does not fuck around. Each time this model makes an attack, if the target is battle shocked, add 1 to the wound roll. Each time an attack targets this model, if the attacking model is battle shocked, subtract 1 from the hit roll. Dude, you can do some serious shenanigans with this shit. You know what I mean? Like, this is for real.
So I know you'll probably get into the rest. All the rules that were shown to us combined make it even better. Like exponentially get better and better. Like, of course, all right, how do we abuse this? And they're like, oh, here's a couple examples of how you can abuse this rule.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be maybe one of the best reveals so far to me because they're on my shelf.
Well, well, let's talk about the combos of this though, because like their detachment rule, Fortune and Terror, in the battle shock step of your opponent's command phase, you know what I mean? If an enemy unit that is below its starting strength is within 12 inches of Chaos Knight, that enemy must take a battle shock test for the purposes of this ability if a unit has a starting strength of 1. So they're just one model. If you've wounded shit, like if you're playing another knight player, we've already seen a ton of vehicles that look really good. If you're playing a marine player with tons of tanks, tons of speeders and shit like that, and you just basically sprayed 1 wound across the freaking entire army, you're like, oh yeah, take a bunch of battle shock tests. Oh yeah, -1. Oh yeah, have they said anything that says we can't start stacking this shit? Because there's multiple people that give you -1s to battle shock right now.
Yeah, so that's something when we see the full girth of the rules, we'll have to see a tidbit too. If you start looking at their like bullshit weapons, Brad, like some of their stubbers are rapid fire 3 now. And you're like, they can accidentally wound lots of stuff.
Yeah. Well, I just think that that's going to be a big deal because we already looked at a lot of the Imperial Knights reveal was pretty good. A couple of these other, you're just looking at lots of people you think are going to bring multi-wound models, vehicles, and things of that nature. And man, the big knights being objective control 10 with basically making people battle shock where they're just not counting for shit, you can steal a lot of objectives. Oh yeah, I'm +1 to wound and you're -1 to hit. I mean, that doesn't sound like it's bad. I think that sounds good.
The defensive stuff is what I like. So we don't know the full, like, if they're going to get upgrades like they do now to make them super defensible. Where, like, we did see the Imperial versions have some more defensive things that were revealed. But from a game standpoint, like, Brad, you might table me, but I don't think I'm not going to let you score any points, right? Like,
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is I'm super terrified of this because they didn't even show all the little guys running up. You know what I mean? Because, like, historically, the little guys for Chaos have been a little bit more beefier as far as just their pure hand-to-hand output. And, man, like, if you're putting everybody at objective control 0 and all of a sudden you're like, hey, man, I didn't score any points for the first 3 turns. What?
you lost. That's what that means.
Yeah, exactly. Like, also, you do take up a significant amount of board. Alex is right. He goes, if stackable with demons too, when they fail a battle shock test, they take mortals. And the thing is that do you get any of these crossover? We don't know how the detachments work for that. Because my head went immediately to, can I take either knights or demons or basically both together? You know, can I take a 500 point of either and put it in your army? Because that sounds legit, man. Like, real legit.
We just don't know. Do you get their traitorous lance ability, right? I don't know.
So that seems big because, like, man, if you could start stacking those abilities together, if I make you take tests plus I make you -1, I mean, imagine if you got both detachment abilities. I'm assuming that you don't, but we don't know. You know what I mean? Because if you got both, you would be taking multiple tests because of Shadows of Chaos and the Forge and Terror ability, and you would take
Based on
mortals.
our spatial friend shaking his head, I would hope not.
Yeah, I don't think they're good. There's not a drunken monkey writing these rules. Like,
Whoa! You take that back.
But I like you know what I like about this though? It feels strong and it's powerful, but it doesn't feel oppressive, right? Like, there's still ways for me to try to play around this, right?
Sorry.
Like, Tau will still stay a natural enemy if I keep staying just 18, back and moving back or moving around.
But I just have to give
Well, they're moving slower now, aren't they?
a little bit. No,
We haven't seen Crisis Suits
no.
yet.
Well, we haven't seen. No, the big guys are moving the same. But I have to go to Zoobs real quick because he made an old man reference too, and it makes me happy. Not that I did like this preview, but I still felt like this was the 98 degrees to Imperial Knights in sync.
I like being different, Brad. Okay,
Hey, man,
leave in sync at home.
I can't remember the dude's name now from 98 Degrees. He had his own TV show. All right, let's go back to 40K. That went somewhere really weird real fast.
This is a usual Monday for you, Brad.
True.
Brad is way more into boy bands than I realized.
Is it 98 Degrees or Backstreet Boys? That's what I want to know.
I mean, Backstreet Boys did better than 98
If
Degrees.
just so we all are on the same page, if you remember what Brad looked like when they were popular, he thought he too could be in.
I mean, this is true. I was literally, I was running
they
around
lost
without
it.
my shirt on all over the place too. I was getting it a goddamn bad.
I think there was a height requirement, though.
Hey, when he showed up for auditions, they were like, "Wait a minute, this isn't Hollywood. We can't make you look taller, Brad."
I mean,
I can stand in that box,
does
bro.
look like Brad does look like a Midwest Joey Fatone. Let's be real.
I love
shit.
it. So I know. So Brad, you're like underlying talking shit about the Chaos Knights, which I love because I think I'm more excited because I think they're more nuanced than the Imperial version.
Oh, I actually agree. I just wanted to read that comment because that was because I knew that the conversation was going there. I think so far the armies that are the low key scariest are Chaos Knights and Demons right now, which is why I'd like to mix them if I get those two, because both of them can really screw with your opponent's ability to score. And it's not like Tyranids can do it, but they kind of do it as a big one shot. You know what I mean? That big one turn. This is like all game fucking with you. Also, man, if you get certain missions, I'm using the old missions, of course, but imagine like this Chaos Knights army going first on a board corner deployment, like conversion, Death and Zeal. And all of a sudden you're just like, hey man, I'm pinning you in your deployment zone, and also you guys are all objective controlled 0. I'm -1 to hit. I'm +1 to wound you. You know what I mean? Like, you might dig your way out of that, man, but that's a shit show right there, you know?
100%. And like we're talking about Tau, like, or any army that wants to stay at 18 and play it smart and play the mission, like in some of those deployments and some of the missions, like you're already at a disadvantage because you're kind of forced to come into this dread range. And when you start accidentally losing your OC and you're banking on scoring X amount of points and you don't, like, that's how, when it's a good player on a good player, that's how you lose, right?
And the thing is think about trying to take that objective, the neutral zone objective, but just when we're talking about the same thing, where even if you go take that, if you don't count as anything, you don't take the objective. You know what I mean? So you didn't do shit, basically. So, man, again, it doesn't matter if you could take what you were like, hey, you can take my army. You don't have any points, you still lose. I mean, yeah.
That's where the auto pass strat's going to come in, where you auto pass battle shock, or the ability to use a free stratagem for a certain army. Like I know there's been a couple of reveals where certain units can just use stratagem for free. I think that's where it's going to come into play. But this spoiler, his base is large enough where potentially, depending on how close those objectives are, he could deny 2 to 3 objectives. Like have them all within 12 inches.
You could do maybe 2. I don't know, 3.
They have big.
Depends on missions. But just talking dread range, he can affect dread range for 3 objectives.
Oh, sure. That's what I'm talking about, the dread range, not physical.
Oh, okay.
I'm just saying that, like, and the thing is that it's not like they're a joke either. Like, a lot of these squads are looking at being, if you're running, like, because I feel there's going to be a lot of MSU coming up because there's a lot of big Batons armies that you're seeing. So you're going to see a lot of things zooming around like that, and not a lot of things have great leadership. And also the fact that you're slightly more objective controlled than they are. A small knight can beat most squads if they're not like a battle line squad. They just have better objective control than they do. So you can like toe touch an objective, screw people over, and then again, they don't count. You know what I mean? Cool. You can still count as controlling the objective. If I've got objective controlled 8 or 10 on it and you don't, I still have it.
Yeah, I think it's worth mentioning too. My favorite thing, I love abominants now, and I think you have to invest a lot into them to make them work. But Vortex is something I've been taking anyway, so it's obviously completely changed now, where you're just picking a unit in your shooting phase and making them take another battle shock test. So I think, and that's stackable. So like if you got 2 abominants and you're talking about every turn, every command phase, you're affecting this whole army, and then maybe they spin that strat, right? And you're like, well, do it again, please, right?
Well, think about
take it again.
Well, let's talk about that abominant. Literally, he's going to be within your dread range. The vortex ability obviously is in your shooting phase, but like this dude also doesn't fuck around. He's got 9 attacks, 3 attacks with his attack. He's got this random, the battle mace and the scourge, but he's got sustained hits and extra attacks on those, man. Like, he's got 3 random extra attacks with the battle mace, and then he's got sustained hits on the strength 10 damage 3 weapon. Like, that's legit, man.
Yeah. But you're going to have to be careful with them, right? Because if you bring too many of these, right, and you're trying to be all dread shenanigans, Space Marines are going to be like, oath a moment, Bobby G. How about 2 units with full reroll? Goodbye.
Well, you're going to have that problem anyways with any of the knights, to be perfectly honest with you. And that's why enjoy Oath while it is. I'm not going to say anything about. I know shit about shit. I'm just saying, if you're looking for things that might be real good and not be real good later, I would say if you're down with Oath, be real down with Oath a moment right now. So.
Turns out Oath is pretty good.
Yeah.
And I don't know the defensive ability or if there's any ways to strats or all the information to keep the Chaos Knights alive. Right now, the way they function is they're very defensible. So if they're not, obviously, points matter. I need to know, can I take 2 abominants and still fit 8 war dogs? Like, I don't know.
Right.
Until...
Well, think about it, though, because one of the biggest things with Chaos right now, and I think it's one of the signature items, and I wonder if they're going to still have it right away, is the no rerolls. that becomes like legit, especially if you've got armies like Space Marines that might have built their whole army out of rerolling hits and wounds. Excuse me. Without that, it's real hard to get rid of the toughness 12, 22 wound guy.
Yeah, but just that one guy who's focused on all the other knights.
True. I know. And that's what you have. We were just talking about that story earlier. But
Funny story. That is how you beat.
yeah, exactly.
I will say I did play against knights and they had one of those guys and I killed it in one turn. Turns out when you have 20 melta guns, it does a lot of work.
That does do it. Turns out, but I typically, if we're talking tactics, and we won't go too far into that, you do like to put your enemy or your opponent in a position where they feel like they have to deal with this big guy, right? And if they have a game plan to get around them, i.e. Brad's like, I'm not shooting a single pistol at this guy.
Dude, it was so funny because I'm like, that you can make that Chaos Knight so ridiculous to take care of. And we've actually played, we're sitting there drinking, we were both staying at Birdsong's house. And we're literally talking about it. I'm like, why is everybody goddamn, moving into your guy that's unkillable? I'm going to kill all the small shit. And so the next day we played, I did kill all the small shit. I did 0 wounds to his big knight. And his big knight was all, I kept just putting sacrificial lambs in front of him. I'm like, Austin, here is my due. You're just
He's like, I want you to know, he was really, I think I could have taken on like 2 more tables with that night. He was never going to die because he felt so confident at killing all the elves that weren't trying to kill him.
Yes. He was doing the Highlander fight me. Everybody's like, nah, I'm good, bro.
We're good, dude.
Like,
that guy on that objective over there, we're gonna deep strike over there.
Yeah. I'm out.
So Brad,
go ahead.
Hey Brad, I'm going to interrupt you. So Corey has an interesting comment. He believes that 10th edition is going to be a huge vehicle meta. Do you think that's the case? Why or why not?
I do. And the thing is, it's just going to depend completely on points, everybody. And Austin made that earlier, talking about whether he can bring, his 8 little guys with everything. Because all the stat lines they showed us so far, the vehicles are so unbelievably better at everything they do than the infantry we've shown. But it's going to depend on points. Because if the points are even remotely in the same categories they are right now, I'm just going to take 1 million speeders and small tanks and things like that and 1 billion small knights, because all of your infantry is going to be wounding me on 5s most of the time. And my point efficiency is just going to be 1 billion times better. I mean, even when you're looking at Meltas and stuff, if I have a T10 speeder, you know what I mean? And your Melta's still wounding me in a 4 and I went down to 18 inches, you know what I mean? We've got these big guns, but all the big guns have had shit for shots. 1 big shot, 2 shots, whatever, you know what I mean? So we've had a lot of big guns where you can snipe one thing, but I really think it's going to be more of an MSU type. Like if Austin shows up with 1 billion small Chaos Knights, I think that's going to be a terrifying army, because you can't just focus down a one big thing that costs 1 million points. If he's pushing up, especially with things like these dread tests, I mean, that's, you could have tough games. You're like, man, at the end of the game, I killed everything. You're like, what'd you score? I'm like, I don't want to talk about that.
Yeah.
And Brad, on that point, though, I'm curious your thoughts, because it's funny, we were talking about this being a vehicle meta. A certain Auspexy person made a whole thing saying that we might not be in a true vehicle meta because we have all these rules that also will make MSU infantry really effective into vehicles like we were talking about, like an
Possibly, yeah.
or auto wounding.
Well, it depends on
and
what
so
else-
vehicles just become too expensive to keep.
Agreed on that. It depends on what the guns are too, because we haven't seen a ton of ability to take a ton of guns with infantry. We didn't see crisis suits, for instance. We haven't seen devastator units. Anybody that, and that's all going to be points, of course, because if you have more anti-tank shit, like we saw that Death Guard Terminator unit, and that thing just shreds infantry. It had devastating wounds, anti-infantry 4, all these things. If we have more of that anti-infantry stuff, you know what I mean? Fusion guns and things, whatever. If we start getting anti-infantry 4, devastating wounds, then yes. But as of right now, we just haven't seen very many infantry shown, and we haven't seen anybody with anything that wasn't a tank with an anti-tank gun. You know what I mean? Exactly, Mike. If it's not devastating wounds, then I don't want it. I feel you on that, my man. It's big though, because like, I mean, just look at some of these things that are on that. I love anything that has like a billion of everything. I mean, let's talk about the despoiler rather. Talk about guns. The despoiler's got a gun that's torrent, flamer, auto hits, but it also ignores cover, old school style, when flamers all used to ignore cover.
I love that thermal cannon though. Melta 6. So if you're in half range, 6 plus D6 damage. That's insane. Like, hey, I
need
auto
points,
kill
dude.
literally any
Because it's
secret.
that's like that gun. Talking about anti-tank in a meta, like we remember that was several years ago when Chaos Knights were popular. We've all got melta guns in the closet. Okay,
Yeah, exactly.
back out because
You need to come back out.
Well, it's also 24 inches, 2d3 shots. You know what I mean? So
Now, wasn't that 36-inch range before? So they
yes,
shrank that range too?
almost all the meltas have gone down. You
That
know,
is very unfortunate.
you know what hasn't gone down? The battle cannons, 72 inches for life, baby. Sometimes you got to shoot something on the other board. So
I still love how it's just rapid fire D6 plus 3. So you're getting, 2D6 plus 6 shots.
it's I just love that it is rapid fire too. You're like, look, man, it says rapid fire battle cannon. I love that it's also a blast. You know what I'm not bringing against you, Austin? If you bring this battle cannon, 20-man mobs.
oh, that's great.
Like, how many shots did you get? That seems like too many.
You're like, wow, rapid fire D6 plus 3. It is cool to see him like integrate. That's the first weird rapid fire we've seen, right? They've all been rapid fire 1, 2. You're like, they can get wild with it for some of these big anti-infantry guns, right? So it's exciting. Like we haven't seen, like you said, the Tau guns. Like if we're gonna start seeing some wild rapid fire X.
Yeah, you're like battle. You're gonna see like burst cannons.
What's that flamer do? You're like torrent, ignore cover, don't need a marker light, rapid fire flamers. You're like, what is happening? I think it's gonna be really cool to see what they do with some of the weapons.
100%, because we've seen rapid fire and blast on some. You know what I mean? So you're just like, well, that sounds like a lot.
I mean, speaking of weirdness, did you guys see this Hellstorm autocannon where it's actually anti-air?
Yes.
Or, sorry, anti-fly 2+?
Twin
like,
link.
hey, there's that crisis suit. I see it. I wound you on 2s.
Now you just
anti-fly.
Yep.
Everything flies.
Well, also remember it's twin links, so it's rerolling wounds also.
Yeah, so in case you roll that one wound, or that one to wound, reroll.
God, everyone's like, damn it, I gotta go find my sprues to like build the autocannon to put on top of my knife.
We did talk about the old Canis coming in. Hold on, I'm pulling it out. I'm Ric Flairing it. Woo! Because I'm bringing back the Freedom Hand, baby. And we brought back that because now I'm going to talk about the Warp Strike Claw, baby. Again, because sometimes you don't need anybody living because you got to hit him with that straight 20 AP3 8 damage shot. Because why work the jab when you can throw the big right hand? Also, hold on a second. Does that work? The army rule works in anything, right? Yep, attacks. So sometimes you got to make somebody -1 to hit you, but in case that you weren't wounding on them with 2 already, you're +1 to wound with your straight 20 hit.
Yeah, this claw can go on a despoiler. This claw can go on a rampager. So like, there's multiple big guys that have access to that weapon. So you could get other rerolls on it as well.
Yes.
So reroll a hit, reroll a wound, +1 to wound. It kills stuff. 8 damage is that's kind of where they floated last time. There's ways to buff them, but Mike Tyson is the chaos version. So don't Iron Mike still throws hands, guys. So we know.
That was one of my favorite things is when we were playing and he went into me and I put a War Walker in front of him and he's like, you just want to pick him up? And I go, yes, but also roll it out because I'm just curious to see how dead he is. And I'm like, he's like, well, him, 6 of his friends, and 1 other guy are hurt. I'm like,
you could have brought every Warwalker you owned, and they didn't make it.
Yeah,
yes.
he just freaking neoed for Agent Smith and that just exploded him. I'm like, that is too much damage, man.
It's amazing when you understand concepts like move blocking and screening. Where you can't let Iron Mike touch important things. Okay.
Well, it's going to be a big thing. I love that you brought that up because we haven't seen all the terrain rules and stuff like that. And I think because they've nerfed fly a little bit, it looks like there's other things that we got to wait to see. But what do you guys think about the ability to just screen? Because we've seen a lot of armies when they said, hey, man, we're going to limit rerolls. And then they just went, just kidding, bitches. Woo! All of them. Let's do it. But we're going to show up with like a full-on reroll all your shit. Every Twin Link is rerolling wounds. Like, we've got a shit ton of rerolls, which means, again, you need to get the shit out of the way and not be seen. How do you guys think that we're going to do that? You know what I mean? Like, we've got new terrain coming out. Let's just make some predictions on that, because it does make a big deal for things like small knights and stuff like that. What are we going to have?
I'll go last.
You'll go last? All right.
Yes.
I guess I'll go first. So they did make it so the terrain keywords are slightly different, so that if it's just partially obscured by ruin, that means it's completely obscured. You can't shoot at it. So it means fidgeting and trying to hide from windows and trying to hide, like, oh, you saw the tip of my flag, so you can destroy the entire unit. That's going to be less likely. So I think it's actually going to be easier to hide models on more of a wide variety of terrain. And there might be rules that say, you can't move through this piece of terrain if unless you have a keyword that allows it to. So depending on the ruins, and if a knight can move through the ruin, you still are protected because he can't walk through the wall.
I think. Go ahead, Brad.
No. I was going to go on to Brandon's thing real quick, because we haven't seen any of it, but I'm wondering if we're going to see more things be able to move through terrain. Because I've always thought it was kind of just dumb that you're like, oh no, a small wall. My giant walker can't go over that. You're like, he could just walk over it. Like, or he could just kick it and just make it not there anymore. I'm like, really? How are you stopping this knight from not going over that picket fence? My bane of my existence, a small fence. How could I possibly get over this?
For all of 8th edition, it was the second floor that they couldn't fight on.
Yeah.
It's like, oh no, he's on the second floor. I just can't not touch him with my giant fist that's taller than him.
Yeah. That was basically the point I was going to make. Yeah, I think it's going to really depend on does breachable go away, or does it stay and allow more things? It's really going to sway how a lot of the game will work, I think, in 10th.
Yep, and I'll dive right into kind of what you were saying, Brad, is like, you look at the keywords, like towering is a new keyword. So like, obviously the big guys have towering, but what does that give them? Does towering mean they can walk over the obstacles or the smaller pieces of terrain? So they're only going to be slowed down by the basically skyscrapers or the large ruins. So we don't know. This is a wish. So my wish list is that they can just kick the damn building down, because I like my knights and I don't want you to do that. We've also seen some instances where they're showing us that you can walk through your own models, right, in the movement phase, not screen yourself. That's been a thing for big knights, can already walk over infantry and
yeah, but they being able to move over other things, though, it's a huge deal.
Yeah, so can they kind of do that versus the smaller terrain? That's what I hope, because it's visibly that makes the most sense. This thing doesn't care about the wall, Brad.
Think about
have they defined towering yet?
Not to my knowledge.
No, we've had a couple things. The big knights these guys are towering. So we'll see what the rule is on that. But I'm excited, though, if you don't block yourself. Because, think about it. Knights, one of the biggest downfalls of knights was you traffic jammed yourself with your small guys. You know what I mean? So if you can move through that, that's like a huge upgrade. Plus, if you stack that, where Eddie was good, Eddie and Brandy were going with Brandy, apparently we have old pop star song. But we've got... If you can move through terrain also, that ups the lethality of this army and the ability of this army to score a ridiculous amount. So that'll be huge on that. So I've been wondering about the terrain. If knights are able to move over their own models, and knights are possibly able to interact with most, if not all, the terrain, that would be gigantic.
Huge boon. And that's kind of one of the ways to beat them now is like, hey, I know I can't square up with them, so let me try to outscore them and slow them down, right? So yeah, if you mitigate that, they should be stronger, unless they're 1 billion points.
Points are going to be the thing.
Could be.
Well, you know what? Let's rock this. Let's talk about this this stratagem real quick, because I think this is boss mode. So start of your shooting phase or the start of the fight phase, which I think makes it a very versatile strat. It's only 1 CP, 2 or more war dogs units from your army, and 1 enemy unit that is an eligible target for either, obviously if they're both in melee or they both can shoot it. Until the end of the phase, the selected war dog units can only target that enemy unit. Who cares if you're in the fight phase? But all weapons equipped by those war dog models gain sustained hits 1. In addition, if that enemy unit is battle shocked until the end of the phase, each time a war dog model makes an attack, an unmodified hit roll of 5+ scores a critical hit. That's legit, man.
So currently, they have something very similar. It's 2 CP, and it's just exploding 6s for war dogs that attack 1 enemy unit. So they're like, let's just make it 1 CP and better.
Yeah, so that's saying that would say right now you can do up to 3, right?
Well, I think right now it's every war dog that shoots 1 unit, enemy unit gets exploding 6s, right? Which is like, and it's 2 CP. We're not starting with a lot of CP anyway, so it's very rare you're going to see right now in the current meta that you see someone do this. But it is good. This is like 1 CP makes it very good, and it says 2 or more. So it's still allowing all of your war dogs to benefit from it. So no negatives. It's just,
Well, it just means you
hits on
kill as many
five
guys as possible in 1 unit.
Well, it's nice though too, because it's usable in both phases, shooting or melee. So like you can make it work with. I mean, shit, you could use this twice if you want to. Have all your shooty guys, put the Reaper chain cannon somewhere, and then you swing for the cheap seats with your big ass, with your warp strike claw, just in case.
I mean, there is one downside. Let's say you overkill and you allocated, let's say, 3 war dog units. 1 war dog isn't going to shoot because you declare all which knights are benefiting from it, and they have to target that unit.
True, but I think that if you're using a strat like this on something, you're legit looking to fuck something up. So,
or you just really want to shoot as many bullets as possible.
I mean, also that too. It makes me happy to see sustained hits and critical hits. All I want to have is I only want to fire guns that have at least 2, preferably 3 special keywords attached to them every time. So that's a legit. And Zoobs has got this. Get those 3D printers rolling. We need dozens of Battle Shock tokens. Dude, that's going to be... I'm going to give my PSA to everybody. You're going to need some shit to... You already need stuff to mark your rules. Everything else. Please use stuff. You need to put Battle Shock tokens out there. You're going to need that shit. For real. I don't give a shit if you write them in crayon on notebook paper, but especially if you're using an army like that, Knights, Chaos, Demons, Tyranid, shit like that. If you're doing tons of these checks, you got to make sure that you have your shit going.
Speaking of, that brings up a question I've been thinking about with this edition. Are we somewhat worried that the 10th is going to be morale simulator 2K7? Because there's so much of the game is now focused on Battle Shock, especially them saying like, oh, we're trying to speed it up. We're taking out the psychic phase, but the command phase is either 2x or 3x longer now between counting OC, running all these battle checks, and battle check being probably the better Battle Shock, one of the better ways to kill your opponent.
Yes, and there's also some mechanics that are going to take forever. Like if you're playing AdMech and you're basically rolling dice for everybody everywhere, you're going to have to streamline everything. That's why I'm saying you need your tokens. You need your tokens, and you need to run a couple definitely test games where you just get used to your mechanics. I put my hat out to you, Thousand Suns players, because anybody that has really involved particular phases, you're just going to have to get good and used to be just efficient, basically.
I've seen three paths to victory right now. Right now, there's the MSU builds where you're like, I can't trust my 1 unit to do this because they're going to get battle shock. So I need multiple units overlaying each other to make sure I'm scoring my points. Or all the sticky objective armies kind of are a hard counter to this, where they're like, let me get my objectives and then get the hell off of them and stop you from getting to them, right? I don't care. I lost OC. I'm just screening the knights because that shit's mine until you take it. That's going to be kind of the meta plays. Some of those armies have to compete with these Battle Shock armies, because if you turns out if you just need your unit to stand there, the Battle Shock army will win most of the time, right? We can already see that playing out. they've previewed a couple different ways to build factions. So you got to pick and choose. So I don't know if you're going to be able to do all of it, but
I like this one a lot because I don't feel like you only are battle shocking people, but you get a nice ability for it. The +1 to wound and the -1 to hit, if they're battle shock, gives you something, a reason to battle shock them, even if they are just standing there. You know what I mean?
I'm just going to bring them up. If Night Lords don't do it better, I'm going to be upset. Everyone heard me.
What if Dark Eldar does it better? Because Dark Eldar historically has had leadership shenanigans.
We love, and I hope it is like that, because I think it would be cool to start seeing leadership in battle shock factions. Because in the fluff, that's kind of what they do.
Are you getting kidnapped?
They don't care about your objectives. They actually just score your objectives if they take them from you. That's all they should get.
So Brad, on our super official ranking system of all the armies, what do we give to these guys?
Oh, that's a good question.
So Knights, you just gave basic S tier.
This is, I think that, I don't know if I would put it as high tier. I think this might have a higher high, but a low. It definitely has a lower low.
And I will bring this up before you grade them, Brad, that currently Knights are a little cheaper than Imperial Knights, and they are a little harder to run, but have a higher, more tricks. So they are a little cheaper in theory if that stays the same. Imperial Knights are stupid when you look at them, but they're probably more expensive because of it.
Yeah, I would agree on that. And
but they're going to be the same book, so I imagine they're all going to be roughly the same.
Look, man.
You never know. I can't. We talked about monkeys and drinking earlier. I don't know who's writing rules. So
I love everything about it. I actually think that chaos has been known to ruin neighborhoods and bring down property values, though. So,
if you ask me, I think they're an A. I think they're one of the real. I think they look really strong without knowing points and stuff.
I think they go A. They're not just straight bust. I think it's an army that has super high potential is my thing. I think that you're going to have to manipulate this shit a lot. I don't think Chaos Knights are just something that you're just going to YOLO swag at your opponent. It'll occasionally work. But I think this army has a lot of ability to do. It also is going to depend. Their total rank is going to depend a lot on the terrain rules, stuff like that. Because if they can move through themselves and they can move through most, if not all of the terrain, this army is going to be nuts. If you can no longer just parking lot Chaos Knights / Knights, both of those armies are going to be a billion times harder to play against.
Sure. And I will bring up the other build, like the Chaos Knights don't shoot as well currently as Imperial Knights, but just looking at Dreadhounds, like if you're wounded and if they get +1 to wound and exploding 5s, like these War Dogs will kill anything they want. We're talking about Oath the moment. They're like, that thing, we get exploding 5s +1 to wound, right? You're like, okay, I start seeing the power of it. It's a shooting army too. I think they're pretty good.
So in A tier right now, you have Chaos, Space Marines at A+, Guard at A, and Sisters at A, and World Eaters at A. Are they in good company?
They're top of the A's.
So A+ for them?
Yeah, they're an A+.
Who's S again?
S tier right now is Space Marines, Tyranids,
Demons.
Imperial Knights, and Demons are S+.
Yeah. I mean, Demons just look absolutely buck wild with being able to strike next to you at 6 inches and make people take mortals if they take battle shocks.
Super official.
Yep. that right there. That's the kind of high technological ability that we put out here, everyone. We make shit happen. So let's do stuff. What do you get? I'm gonna have everybody wrap up Knights. I'm gonna start with Austin because he plays them. What are your thoughts, brother?
I think the flavor's there. I think they incorporated a lot of things from this edition that I love. I hope we get to customize them. Like if we get some marks, that's something I really like with all the armies. I like to be able to upgrade my sergeants and upgrade my dudes. So I hope they get that. But I think they were super solid, and this is one of the best reveals I've seen.
Endy?
Yeah, I have to agree. I think I really like the Knights rules. They feel like very thematic and fun, and they're going to be interesting to play. I definitely want to see these War Dog rules, and the points will matter a lot. But yeah, I like what they did with Chaos Knights. Probably even a little bit better than Imperial Knights.
Brandon?
I think they're definitely fluffy. I don't know if they're going to get all the rules for marks and stuff until the Chaos book Chaos Knight book comes out. Just because if you look at the back of the Knight to spoiler card, there it says nothing about marks. So I think it's going to be as is Knight. So they're definitely going to be losing a little bit of fluff just based on this preview, which is definitely sad. But I could see these rules potentially stacking with other armies and doing really well.
I agree on this. All the things you said, those are my ideas, and I agree.
I'm just saying. When
So it looks like tomorrow Custodes is coming out, Brad. Are we planning on chatting about Custodes tomorrow afternoon?
Yes.
And what time do we think
1
we'll be doing
o'clock
that?
Eastern Standard Time.
Nice.
All right.
It'll be time for things and or stuff. Also,
All right. Any
people,
other final thoughts?
like and subscribe. Get us to 1,000 subscribers. We were told that things could happen once we get to 1,000 subscribers, and then things will happen. Things, maybe even stuff. Maybe even GW things. Custodes are tomorrow, KR. Just love it. Oh, I hate that. I can feel you on that. So everybody, thanks for hanging out with us tonight. Austin, thanks for coming on, even though I told you so far in advance. And everybody, enjoy the day.
Also,
we
Austin,
should probably say see you tonight.
Austin, Alan Pajama Pants Bromovich thinks you have a lovely house and that you're married because of how well kept everything is. Congratulations.
I can't believe I'm not gay. I don't understand. That's how I feel every day. I'm like, it's just me in here now. So I'm a little OCD if you know me. So thank you, PJ. You're the best.
Love
Right,
it.
and on that note, we'll see you guys later tonight.
Deuces.
Queensway.